Now we will move on to the Q&A session. We hope everyone will actively participate and speak up. If you have any questions, please raise your hand to indicate. Our staff will bring a microphone to you. If you feel shy or uncomfortable speaking up, you can also write your question on a slip of paper and pass it to the front. First, let me read one out. Just now, there was a question from someone at the Faculty of Education, University of Hong Kong. She raised a question, homage to the greatly kind guru. If someone believes that the mind is an appendage of the body, because the body is visible and tangible and can be observed, while the mind is elusive and intangible, and one person's consciousness cannot be known by others. And moreover, modern neuroscience has already discovered that specific regions of the brain are associated with emotions, memory, and so on. So consciousness is nothing more than a function of the brain, and its operation is like an illusion. When the brain dies, consciousness also ceases to exist. So how can we dispel this kind of doubt?
In fact, what we now call science, so-called neuroscience, is merely an analysis of certain parts of the brain's structure. As for the true relationship between the mind and the brain, science is actually quite lacking. It is an area that remains unanalyzed, because up to now, science, including Jungian psychology, has not thoroughly observed all the structures within our minds, not to mention the teachings of Mahayana Vajrayana Buddhism, even the Abhidharma Kosha of the Theravada tradition, when it comes to certain psychological aspects, finds the relationship between mind and mental factors to be extremely difficult to explain. Therefore, the current claim that brain damage directly harms the mind is incorrect. There are actually more than 20 individuals in the world who are known to live without a brain, and their minds function just the same as those of people with a brain. In the biography of Zhangyang Gyatso, it is mentioned that he personally witnessed a person living without a head. It's very rare. Last night I also dreamed of a person like that. His head was over here and his body was over there, but he could still speak. I thought, this patient is in a very serious condition. We should hurry and take him to the hospital for treatment. I can contribute some money. No matter how much it costs, after all, it's a human life. I told the people next to me, and after I woke up this morning, I didn't know what this dream meant. But then I thought, oh, at least I didn't have any evil thoughts. I still had the thought of wanting to help him, so that's still a good thing.
Thank you, Master. Khenpo Rinpoche, hello. I am the mother of a child with autism. This is my child. Sorry for the interruption. I saw what you wrote on Weibo. You mentioned that there is a method to help children with autism, which involves using external conditions. Could you please explain it to us?
Actually, whether it's children with autism or others, there are various methods for addressing these issues. There are quite a few methods, but I think sometimes when the karma from a sentient being's previous life has already manifested in this life, it can be quite difficult to completely change their destiny. In the stories of the Buddha, it is often the case that when encountering sentient beings who lack one or more of the 6 faculties, the Buddha would dedicate the merit and bless those present, and then use his teachings to guide them, helping each person to plant virtuous roots. As for the principles regarding autism, I once gave a special lecture on this topic, which should be available online. So I hope you can listen to that lecture when you have a moment. These are some of my methods and thoughts on the matter. But for the sake of this child, as well as a few others present here, I will recite a few things regarding the karma from past lives that led to incomplete faculties, and certain sufferings in this life that truly cannot be reversed. The main thing is to recite the name of Buddha Fahai Tathagata.
Thank you, Master. Just now, Weibo was mentioned. We also have a friend here who is far away in the United States. He raised a question on Weibo and hopes the Master can answer it. He said, "Hello, Rinpoche. On behalf of a friend in the United States, I would like to ask a question. Why is the preservation of Dharma lineage essential when modern science offers advanced recording methods?"
Actually, there are a lot of people on Weibo asking questions, so generally it's not possible to answer all the questions on Weibo. But since this question has been brought up here today, In fact, the lineage of the Dharma, including the lineage of our current precepts, any Buddhist lineage we have here is important. For example, from the time of Shakyamuni Buddha to now, there have been bhikshus and bhikshunis. In our Tibetan region, though, the bhikshuni ordination lineage was interrupted. Now only the Shramanarika ordination remains, while in the Han region, all these precept lineage have continued to exist up to the present day. In the same way, whenever we transmit any Dharma teaching, especially regarding other Dharma lineages in Tibetan region, including the lineage of the Kangyur and Tengyur and their commentaries, they have always been preserved intact and undamaged. This is a direct connection of blessings transmitted from the Buddha to people today. It is a lineage passed down through blessings in this way. If we look at it from a worldly perspective, for example, like the uninterrupted succession of US presidents to the present, this is also a form of lineage. From a worldly view, if such a lineage exists, then the continuity of the Dharma lineage is even more certain. This is also why this lineage is so important.
Hello, Master. Many Dharma brothers and sisters often say that they keep making aspirations and dedicating merit. Just like you mentioned earlier, Master, afflictions are actually bodhi. And when experiencing suffering, they think of others and continuously make aspirations and dedicate merit to them. In this way, one can cultivate compassion. And by doing so, there will be no more suffering, right?
That really depends on each individual person's level of practice and experience.
But even so, it can still be very painful. For example, when seeing the Master fall ill, one feels great pain and hopes the Master can recover quickly.
This is also mentioned in the Ratnagotra Vibhaga. Truly, for some, such as bodhisattvas and great accomplished masters, in their 5 aggregate body there is no suffering from illness. They have already... The Ratnagotra Vibhaga says that sages have transcended birth, aging, sickness, and death. But in front of us, sentient beings, they manifest this suffering. So generally speaking, disciples' concern for the master's illness and suffering is the worry of ordinary beings for sages.
They do this to guide us, just like layman Vimalakirti, right?
If the master is a great accomplished one, then yes. If the master is an ordinary person, it is also worth the disciples' concern.
Homage to Khenpo Rinpoche, I would like to ask, it was mentioned earlier, as we discussed before, that eating meat is in fact a kind of... Animals are living beings and eating them is a bad action. But I think plants are also living beings. So if we eat them, wouldn't it be the same as eating animals? Isn't that also bad?
I actually talked about this question yesterday at Kyuk as well. In fact, the Buddha said in the Nirvana Sutra that animal life is composed of the 5 aggregates, and beings with the 5 aggregates truly experience suffering. Whereas plants, although they may react in certain situations, for example, their movement or ripening, they may show such responses, but this is not considered true life. If we were to recognize plants as truly having life as well, the Buddha said in the Shurangama Sutra that this view is actually an externalist view. So nowadays, many people regard animals and plants as being exactly the same. This is a very big mistake. Even some university professors can't distinguish this clearly. This is a major error. Although in botany, plants are referred to as a form of life, there was a book called The Science of Life, translated by Guo Moruo in the past. In The Science of Life, there are many explanations from a biological perspective. I've read it too. It's a very thick book, but even in it, it doesn't distinguish between the life of animals and that of plants. Therefore, in Buddhism we say there is a huge difference between cutting a blade of grass and killing a cow. Killing a cow is destroying another sentient life, which is a serious wrongdoing, whereas destroying grass, in fact, is only a minor wrongdoing. Some people might say, doesn't Buddhism teach that we shouldn't harm grass or animals? It's true that there is a teaching not to harm them, but the two are completely different. For example, killing a person versus cutting down a forest. There is also a huge difference between the two in terms of the law. If we kill an animal, we will definitely fall into hell. But if we cut down a tree, we won't fall into hell. So on this issue, there are many Buddhists. Why did I just say that Buddhists need to study the Dharma? The reason is right here. Nowadays, many people seem to think eating vegetables is a fault, and eating meat is also a fault. They completely fail to distinguish the severity of these faults. If that's the case, then stealing gold is a fault, and stealing a needle is also a fault. They treat every small issue as if it's exactly the same. This is unreasonable.
Hello, Rinpoche. My Mandarin isn't very good. Please forgive me. I'm from CUHK. Today you are talking about suffering. But the Buddha himself also saw the suffering of sentient beings. Then he felt that this suffering was something that needed a solution, so he went to practice. I think it was because he saw this suffering that it became the motivation for his practice. And then he felt, I want to overcome this suffering. So in the future, we have great people like the Buddha. In this Saha world, he taught and guided others for more than 40 years. So this suffering, compared to the suffering of ordinary people like us, I think the source is the same. It's also the mind feeling a lot of pain. But what he accomplished is different from us. We study this religion because we want to learn from the Buddha, to become a Buddha ourselves. And we hope that one day we can understand how he transformed his suffering. Then it becomes a driving force to accomplish the benefit of all sentient beings. May Rinpoche please give us some teachings. Thank you.
All right, I think, as you just mentioned, at first the Buddha also saw that all of samsara is suffering. Then he left home, practiced austerities, and finally attained enlightenment and turned the wheel of Dharma. This is very clear in the Buddha's biography, and we too might see the suffering of sentient beings and then give rise to renunciation ourselves. From then on, this suffering, which was originally a source of pressure, is transformed into motivation and leads to accomplishment. But the origin of this accomplishment is actually also a matter of causes and conditions. As I just mentioned, we transform this suffering into a part of the path. If we transform it into a part of the path, then this suffering has already become the cause for our practice. This is very important, both for the Buddha and for us today. This is why so many great masters in Tibetan Buddhism, they actually hope for suffering, hope to encounter enemies, and hope that many obstacles will arise in their lives. They do not wish for everything to go smoothly every day. If everything goes smoothly all the time, there will be no progress in practice. It is only when they encounter suffering that they realize what the true state of their practice is. So, in Mahayana Buddhism, encountering an enemy is like finding a wish-fulfilling jewel. Nowadays, people are especially fond of money, so encountering an enemy is like coming across money. But many of us are unwilling to face these frightening things. This is a huge difference. So, as I just mentioned, when we transform things into the path, whether it's the Buddha or ourselves, we turn suffering into something useful. It's like a skilled doctor who can turn all the herbs on the mountain into effective medicine.
Khenpo, hello. I am from the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Hong Kong. I took refuge in 2004. Now I am practicing the words of my perfect teacher as transmitted by Achuk Rinpoche at Yaqing Monastery. I would like to ask a question about worldly matters. That is to say, I have been earnestly practicing bodhicitta, specifically the exchanging self and others method taught by Shantideva. Of course, I feel that in many aspects of the world, especially in interpersonal relationships, there have indeed been some changes and manifestations. But I have a question, which is this. Someone very close to me has a very strong sense of self-attachment. I have also asked my own teacher, who said that she has deep-rooted habitual tendencies. I also understand that this problem cannot be solved quickly, because this is just how she is and I have no way to change her. But from a long-term perspective, what should I do? For example, should I just naturally let her be as she is and continue to practice my own Dharma? Or should I, through practicing Dharma, along with the blessings of my teacher and the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, help her gradually change? Or Khenpo, could you perhaps offer a better solution? Thank you.
Actually, this matter should be something for you and your teacher to work on together to help her. But for me to say something is a bit... Still, my suggestion is that no matter what, you shouldn't just leave it to fate. Even though her habitual tendencies are very strong, and maybe she won't be able to change right away. But if we look at the Buddha's biographies and many teachings, it is indeed not so easy for us to liberate sentient beings. Therefore, we must keep making efforts and try to persuade her over a long period of time. Gradually, many people's faith, wisdom, and renunciation will change. So, I think you shouldn't just leave it to chance because of this. You shouldn't just let her be and let it pass. You still need to keep making efforts. As Mahayana Buddhists, actually, there are many such people around us. For these kinds of people, maybe the first or second time I talk to them, it might not have any effect. But if you keep talking to them over a long period, when the right conditions arise, it will have an impact. Some people say it's useless to talk to them, but that's not true. Among people, there are 3 types. One type won't listen to anyone, even if the Buddha himself comes. There's nothing that can be done. There's nothing you can do, nothing I can do, no one can do anything. Another type doesn't need you or me. They awaken on their own. These people don't need it either. But right now, there's a group in the middle. If we make an effort with them, they have the chance to awaken and mature. If we don't make the effort, then there's nothing that can be done. In the past, the Buddha told some stories in the 100 Deeds Sutra, saying that if certain sentient beings hadn't encountered the Buddha, they would have continued to wander for another 500 lifetimes. But because they met the Buddha, they attained the fruit of arhatship in that very life. There are many such stories. Nowadays, some people think, just go with the flow. But actually, that's not right. If we truly have bodhicitta, when bodhicitta arises in our own hearts in that state, generally speaking, anyone would be willing to share it with many people around them. If you don't feel anything yourself, then maybe it doesn't matter to you. So, a true Buddhist, whether you are a lay practitioner or one of us monastics, look within your heart to see if you have any realization. If you have some realization, then it's impossible to keep it to yourself. You would really wish, seeing so many suffering beings in this world, that this spiritual nourishment should not be kept to yourself, but should be shared with many others. So for all of us here, truly, in today's society, the Dharma is needed to save us. The Dharma is extremely timely in saving humanity, and all the conditions in every aspect are also very ripe. I think this moment in time for us is truly extraordinary. A few decades from now, neither you nor I may still be among the people of this world. Many will have turned to dust and vanished, already departed. Some will have been reborn in the Pure Land, while others may have fallen into the hell realms. Okay, all will have left. So, in this brief period of time, I think each of us should use some of the wisdom of Buddhism to help others. This far surpasses helping others with money.
In today's busy society, people face tremendous pressure in both life and work. Especially in an international metropolis like Hong Kong, the competition is extremely fierce. How can we balance all these pressures and attain a sense of happiness?
In Buddhism, the best way is to learn contentment and reduce desires. If you are content and have few desires, as Master Shantideva also said, the idea of reducing greed and desire is something even the king of the gods, Indra, finds hard to attain. In our current urbanized world, there are certainly many people who are constantly rushing about for the sake of competition, but in reality it's not that they're truly lacking anything. Many people nowadays aren't actually missing anything essential. But for the sake of face, for the sake of reputation, they start to acquire more and more and occupy more and more. Many of today's resources are mostly occupied by the wealthy people of the world. In fact, this is a tremendous waste. Therefore, whether it's power or wealth, in fact, giving back to society and allowing everyone to enjoy together, if you have this kind of mindset, your own suffering will also decrease. For society as a whole, this also reflects the values of a truly harmonious society.
A friend once said, "I have believed in Buddhism for many years, but I have never really reflected on it, nor have I systematically studied Buddhist teachings. May I ask, Khenpo, could you give us a general guide?" And another friend also asked, saying, "How can we comprehensively and systematically access the Buddhist teachings you have given?"
As for the Buddhist teachings I have given in the past, the study group here was not particularly large. But in the past 2 years, here I have taught words of my perfect teacher, as well as Bodhicharyavatara and the Pure Land teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, and also the principles related to prajna. These fellow practitioners practice every Sunday. And today, here among us, many of those wearing red clothes are members of the study group. So, if you are willing to study systematically, just study together with them. That's the only way I can offer. I don't have the time to personally speak to so many people face to face, and perhaps everyone's karmic connections and circumstances may not necessarily align. But if you truly want to study, I saw the day before yesterday that there were very few people attending, but even if there are only a few people, I just go with the flow. If you find it helpful or feel the need to study step by step, the only way is to get in touch with our study group here. In the future, on a long-term basis, whether it's providing books, CDs, or other resources for everyone, I generally try my best not to charge any money here. The principle of our society is not mainly about fundraising, nor is it mainly about making money. But that doesn't mean Buddhism shouldn't make money. That's not what I mean. But in practice, my principle is that whether we're gathering together or doing anything else, the main thing is to study the Dharma in a pure and untainted way. My own mind is also very pure. I feel that wherever I go, it's the same. This is the only way for me, and it makes me truly happy inside. And this is also the principle of our society. This will provide everyone with a learning opportunity in the future. There are no other objectives to consider, so if you yourselves are willing to learn and open to understanding, that is all that is needed. If your introduction includes an address, such as a location or contact information, do they have it?
Yes, let's look at the introductory paper we'll hand out. I have contact info for the study group, including their email and website.
That might be the only way to contact them, okay?
Hello, Khenpo. I'm studying at City University and now I'm facing a...
Where is it?
I'm here. Sorry, I'm a bit shy, so I'm embarrassed to stand up.
That's fine, no problem. You can stay seated.
Can I sit?
Yes, that's fine.
Sorry about that. Because I tore that ligament about 5 years ago during an accident that happened back then, it has affected me ever since. I've always felt a lot of pain, and I haven't exercised at all these past few years. A few months ago, when I tried to exercise again, I ended up tearing the same ligament. I just feel so shy, sorry. I just feel so much pain, because this has been something that's held me back for the past 5 years. It's the reason why I've been afraid to exercise. Now that it's torn again, I just wonder, why is my body so weak? It feels like I'm always dealing with some illness or another, and it's really painful. Honestly, I really don't know how to solve this problem at all. I hope you can give me some advice. Thank you.
Here's what I think. In addition to regular medical treatment, which is something we Buddhists also highly praise, for any illness, relying on either traditional Chinese medicine or Western medicine for treatment is the foundation. And on top of that foundation, your usual mindset. If I speak from my own perspective, 10 years ago, I had ankylosing spondylitis. Many doctors said there was no cure, that I would be in pain for the rest of my life. At the same time, I had hepatitis and also chronic gastritis. After one of the doctors gave me my test results, he looked at me and said, "You're really quite unlucky, unfortunately. All these difficult-to-treat illnesses are happening to you alone." But honestly, I think if I hadn't studied Mahayana Buddhism, I probably would have been in a lot of pain mentally. But to tell the truth, I didn't treat my illness as a big deal. I thought, no matter what, this body, sooner or later it's going to decay anyway, so it doesn't really matter. As long as I can live a few more days, I still want to do something meaningful. So, at that time, when the doctor said I might not have much time left to live, I hurried to Xiamen and went into retreat there, and translated the extensive biography of Shakyamuni Buddha. I was worried that I might leave this world before finishing the translation. I even mentioned this in my travel diary, Footprints of the Journey, at the time. I said I was really worried that I would pass away before finishing the translation of this Dharma text. If I were to leave this world after finishing the translation, I wouldn't have any regrets. But later, these illnesses, over the past few years, they all miraculously healed completely. Now, there's nothing wrong anymore. So I feel that sometimes, as patients, we shouldn't always be thinking, I'm suffering, what should I do? It's as if we shouldn't treat it as such a big deal, just like I mentioned earlier. It's fine if things go well, and also fine if they don't. If things don't go well, it's due to my past karma, or maybe I'm bearing others' suffering. With this mindset, whether it's work or anything else, just keep doing what you can. At a certain point, I believe your illness will also get better. Even if it doesn't get better, in this world, it's not just you and me. Everyone, when they finally leave this world, it's always quite tragic. There's nothing we can do. Samsara is just like that.
Hello, Khenpo Rinpoche. I am a graduate of PolyU. I am also a disciple of the Nyingma Dzogchen lineage, and I have 2 questions. The first is, could you please explain the difference between Trekcho and Togal? The second is, I am very devoted to His Holiness, the wish-fulfilling jewel. I hope he will swiftly return by the power of his aspirations. Could you please orally transmit his supplication prayer? Let us supplicate for him so that he may return soon. Thank you.
What was your first question just now?
The first question is that I would like to understand a bit about the difference between Trekcho and Togal. Thank you.
I see. Regarding your first question, Trekcho and Togal actually. In Dzogchen, Trekcho is called primordial purity, and Togal is the practice of leap-over. These two, primordial purity, mainly refers to the nature of mind, while Togal is about the aspect of luminosity. In fact, when practicing Dzogchen, these 2 key points are essential to understand. As I mentioned earlier, after receiving empowerment and practicing the preliminaries, one will definitely come to understand this principle. However, some of the pith instructions I also share verbally. I myself too can say that I spend about half of my time often contemplating this principle. But among those present here, it's possible that some of you may not necessarily have faith in Vajrayana, and some have never even received an empowerment. So for some specific principles, perhaps it's best to... In the past, I have also translated many teachings related to this topic. You should try to understand these on your own. Maybe it's better to learn about them privately. Now, regarding the second question, His Holiness, the wish-fulfilling jewel, has also been here before. When His Holiness went to America or to India, he would stay here at the Palil Center when he returned. Just now, when I passed by the entrance of PolyU, they mentioned the Palil Center, and I was quite familiar with this street at that time. But Hong Kong has changed so much that I don't recognize it anymore. When I came here just now, I felt very sad in my heart. Back then, His Holiness, the wish-fulfilling jewel, was still alive, benefiting countless sentient beings. Now he has already left this world. I can recite his prayer. When the Guru, the wish-fulfilling jewel, passed away, he said he would not reincarnate for the time being. But he didn't say he would never reincarnate, so we also hope that his reincarnation will return by the power of his vows to liberate countless sentient beings. Now I can recite his prayer.
Next, a graduate of the MBA program at Hong Kong Open University has 2 questions. The first question is, there are only a few days each year to meet with the Guru or attend Dharma assemblies in Shenzhen or Guangzhou. The opportunities to study esoteric teachings with the Guru are very limited, and this is a source of suffering. If you were my Guru, how would you address this issue for your disciple? The second question, the disciple expresses to the Guru a wish to seek the Dharma. Last year, I respectfully invited the Guru to Guangzhou to teach the Dharma to about 10 Hong Kong disciples. It was held over 4 weekends. Is this the right thing to do? Should one take the initiative to request the Guru to transmit esoteric teachings? Or do things like life release, etc.? What else can be done?
If I were your Guru, let's suppose if I were your Guru, then I might quietly discuss with you to see what could be done. But the question he just raised is actually an issue that many people may be facing nowadays, especially as the Guru becomes more and more renowned. The opportunities for disciples to be close to him become fewer and fewer, and those whom one can actually approach. Sometimes some people simply don't have the time or the realization. So now, actually, whether the Guru is physically by your side or not doesn't really matter that much. What matters most are the Guru's Dharma texts and teachings. If everyone can receive and accept these, that is extremely important. If in a whole year you only spend a few days or a week with the Guru, indeed we cannot place all our hopes on meeting the Guru in person. In fact, meeting the guru face to face is not that important. What truly matters is diligently studying and practicing the guru's teachings. So for many of us here, relying on the guru is crucial, but it's not possible. If there is only one guru and thousands or tens of thousands of disciples, it's simply not feasible for everyone to follow him around and meet with him. Therefore, we should continuously study some of the guru's teachings and dharma instructions. At the same time, we should practice on our own. That's why I mentioned earlier that there are some special circumstances for holding dharma assemblies, because I am not very familiar with the specific details of this dharma assembly either. I don't know exactly how things are, but this is how I see it. No matter what kind of Buddhist dharma assembly we are talking about now, we must never do anything that would negatively impact Buddhism. For example, constantly fundraising or always presenting an improper image. This is not only detrimental to the teacher, but also to the entire dharma. Each of us should take responsibility for Buddhism. Each of us must be responsible to our teacher. Each of us should be responsible for ourselves. So, although some actions are necessary, when they are made public in groups that do not believe in Buddhism, if we act in such a way, it will be detrimental to the future propagation of the Dharma. We should do our best to prevent such things. As for anything that benefits the propagation of the Dharma and sentient beings, we should keep doing it without stopping. Even if we face danger to our lives, we should still continue to do it. Our teacher, the wish-fulfilling jewel, ever since the Cultural Revolution, the situation in the country at that time was extremely tense. But for the sake of the Dharma, truly, he faced all kinds of situations, many difficulties. Therefore, many disciples of His Holiness's lineage, the wish-fulfilling jewel, they still possess a very strong will when it comes to spreading the Dharma and benefiting sentient beings. I also sincerely hope that many of you present here today. Some of you are like His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche and His Holiness Penor Rinpoche, because I came to Hong Kong back in the 1990s, and at that time it was a very open place. Just now when I was talking with the President, we mentioned this as well. Back in the 1970s, His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche was spreading the Dharma right here. This was something extremely rare on the mainland, but many people may have never practiced, even though such opportunities existed. Now we have such freedom and such open circumstances. In the future, we must truly promote the authentic faith, correct view, and true essence of the Dharma. Every Buddhist has this responsibility. We cannot shift it onto others. Everyone needs to make an effort in this regard.
A student from the Chinese University of Hong Kong has raised a question. As Han disciples, we lack the merit of Tibetan disciples. When taking refuge, we cannot always observe great teachers as Tibetans can. It may not be possible to observe for many years like the Tibetan disciples do. We often choose a master due to circumstances. If their teachings and conduct follow the Dharma, then the disciple will have deep faith in the master. Sometimes some disciples learn the master owns luxury houses and more. When disciples judge the master with an ordinary mind, their faith is undermined. In such situations, how should disciples respond? How can one distinguish a qualified master, and how should one judge the master's outward behavior? Please give us your guidance.
Actually, I think Han region disciples are the same as Tibetan disciples. Everyone should have the opportunity to observe their master. They also have time and all kinds of conditions to observe. If Tibetans have these opportunities, why wouldn't Han people? They should have them as well. So traditionally nowadays, when many masters arrive, many people immediately go to listen to teachings and receive empowerments right away. This is unreasonable. Even in worldly matters like making friends or getting married, you wouldn't just meet someone on the street and immediately marry them. That simply doesn't happen. A lifelong partner also requires investigation. You need to understand their family background and what their personality is like. At the very least, you need to get to know them, which might take several months or even up to a year. So we should treat our teachers the same way, because seeking the Dharma is even more important than that if you look at it in the long run. So I think that some people in the Han region, actually the previous approach of not investigating is unreasonable. It should be like in Tibet, where careful observation is very important. As for having faith in a teacher, I think if someone is truly a teacher who benefits the Dharma and sentient beings, they may not care about their own mansions or wealth. He sees them as worthless as dirt, not necessarily attached to them, just like the stories of Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo in the past. Some teachers, all of their intentions. I once met a teacher, there was a teacher, he really did have a very nice house in a city, When I was joking, I once said to him, "You're no different from ordinary people now. You have a car, you have a house." Later, he said, "To be honest, this house, even my cowshed made of dung, I have no such attachment to it." He wasn't just boasting, "I know this person and that's truly how he is." So for some people, no matter how much wealth they have, in their minds they treat it like a mere stone. They simply don't have the kind of attachment that ordinary people do. For teachers like this, no matter how much property they have, I think it doesn't matter. That's not the key point. But some people are actually among ordinary people, perhaps even worse than the average worldly person. They spend every day running around for these things. These are what Buddhism refers to as teachers who lack the proper qualities. So first we should keep our distance. If later on you discover, maybe at the beginning, they don't necessarily possess those qualities and their approach and intentions are not at all about spreading the Dharma. So in many cities in the Han region, there are also many good teachers. This gives many disciples in the Han region the opportunity to take refuge in the Dharma. If they don't have this, they will remain forever trapped in samsara. There are also some bad ones whose true nature is eventually exposed completely. So in this world where good and bad are all mixed together, we often need to keep our eyes open and observe carefully. This is very important.
Someone asked Rinpoche, "I am a disciple of the Kagyu tradition. Is it okay for me to participate in online learning? Is there any conflict between different lineages? If I participate in online learning, are there any Vajrayana precepts I need to follow? Please give your guidance."
Regarding this, when we study online, generally, we don't teach any exclusive Vajrayana practices online. We only discuss texts like the Bodhicharyavatara and Words of My Perfect Teacher. These can all be studied online. Nowadays, there are many group practices available online. Whether it's the Kagyu, Sakya, or Nyingma schools, true Buddhism will never have any conflicts. In the past, in a place like Hong Kong, between different sects, even some Buddhist centers had conflicts with each other, which is really not good. Every one of us Buddhists first gives rise to bodhicitta, then accumulates merit, and finally attains Buddhahood. There is no such thing as yours and mine, so we should have a particularly inclusive mindset. This includes not rejecting other religions as well. We just practice our own path, but we must not reject others. Therefore, on the basis of not contradicting each other, everyone should, as people say nowadays, seek common ground while reserving differences. We should cultivate and learn in a spirit of harmony.
Hello, Khenpo. I am a staff member from the Polytechnic University. I have a small question I'd like to ask. I just started working not long ago, but work can be very busy, and I also want to do meditation retreats. Personally, I am also very interested in doing some Buddhist meditation, but I always feel like I don't have enough time. My whole day seems to be taken up by other things, so I'd like to ask for some guidance from the teacher. Is it because my sincerity in studying Buddhism isn't enough? Is there a good way to find some balance? Or do you have any good suggestions? Please give us some advice, Khenpo. Thank you.
Actually, we are all especially busy with our time. For people who have some pressures in life from various aspects, at the very least, if you really want to practice, when you get up in the morning, you can prostrate to the Guru and the three jewels, recite some Vajrasattva mantra and chant some simple mantras, and then in your daily life, maintain a mind of bodhicitta. This is very important. Even if you really have no time to practice or recite sutras every day, if you have to go to work or take care of family matters. I am doing this in order to benefit all sentient beings. Having this kind of intention is very easy. Whether you're riding in a car or going out, you can always keep this in mind. Then at night, you can reflect, everything I did today. Did I do anything that harmed sentient beings? Did I approach things with a kind heart? If you did, dedicate all the merit to sentient beings. This is what we often talk about in Mahayana, the teaching of the three excellences. By practicing in this way, even if your work is especially busy, I think over time, little by little, merit accumulates like drops of water forming an ocean.
There was a person who got cancer. Every day, he had to undergo medical treatment and endure the torment of illness. If one day he unfortunately dies, would that be considered a painful liberation? His family would all feel sad because of his death. So would this be considered a kind of suffering? If it is, how should we face it?
I think, as I just mentioned, this has probably already been addressed. In our Tibetan region, there is a saying, "It's better for a guest who can't stay to leave soon. It's better for a patient who can't survive to die soon." So for him, it might be a kind of liberation. For the family, suffering is a normal phenomenon. But for the family, as I just mentioned, all the key points on how to face suffering have already been discussed. So if you are able to reflect, that's good.
A doctoral student from the University of Science and Technology asks, does aspiration come before a Buddha's Pure Land arises? For example, was the Pure Land of ultimate bliss established only after Amitabha Buddha made vows? So, can we say that our world is the Pure Land of Shakyamuni Buddha? Generally, Buddha lands are all very beautiful, but our world is not beautiful at all. It could even be said to be full of suffering. Does that mean Shakyamuni Buddha didn't make good vows at the causal stage?
No, that's not the case. The vows made by Shakyamuni Buddha, among all the Shakyamuni Buddha did make vows. According to the Treatise on the White Lotus, he made 500 great vows. At that time, among 1,000 aspirants during the process of making vows, Shakyamuni Buddha and one other person, their vows were the most supreme among them all. Why is that? Because many of those making vows chose pure lands. Later, Shakyamuni Buddha saw that sentient beings in the degenerate world were truly pitiable. He resolved, I must choose those sentient beings who are especially afflicted by deep defilements. Therefore, his vow, as stated in the Buddhist scriptures, there is a specific sutra in the Buddhist canon called the White Lotus Sutra. A vow as pure as a white lotus. That is why Shakyamuni Buddha's 500 great vows surpass the great vows of 1,000 Buddhas. So, regarding the question, it is essential to understand the aspect of manifesting phenomena. I often think about this myself, that it is truly because of the Buddha's vows that we sentient beings in this degenerate world are able to be embraced. Otherwise, we sentient beings in this Dharma-ending age, no Buddha would be able to liberate us. Only this Buddha made the vow to embrace us. We must be grateful to the greatly compassionate Shakyamuni Buddha.
Hello, Khenpo. I am a student from the University of Science and Technology. Thank you for your wonderful sharing with us just now. I would like to ask if you could share with us again what you consider to be the greatest suffering you have encountered in your life so far and how you faced it. Thank you.
Very well. This year I was born in 1962. So this year I should be 49 years old, right? Almost 50, right? During this process, when I truly reflect on my own life, I should say, before I systematically studied Buddhism, including when I was in elementary school, middle school, and before I started school at all. I only started school at 15, which was quite late. Before I was 15, I was illiterate and spent my days herding yaks. Later, my younger brother refused to go to school, and at that time, the school would fine us. There was really no other way, so I went to school in my brother's place. Fortunately, at that time, my brother often tells me, I owe you a great debt of gratitude. Otherwise, I would have just been a shepherd boy in the mountains with no chance to go to school. Before that, when I was young, when I was a cattle boy, I often lost yaks, or after they were eaten by wolves, I didn't dare go home, and I felt extremely miserable. That's how it was. Then when I was at school, at that time I attended school, elementary, middle school, and later went to a teacher training college. During that time, I often didn't receive any awards at school. Or sometimes there would be some conflicts at school. And when I lost fights with other students, I often felt very miserable. Later, I left home to become a monk. After that, you could say that for nearly 20 years of my life, I devoted myself entirely to studying. Even now, I am still constantly reading and meditating. During this process, I honestly can't recall experiencing any suffering. I became a monk right after leaving home in 1985. In 2005, our classmates held a 20-year reunion. At that 20-year reunion, there were 2 or 3 of us who had become monks. The 2 or 3 of us who had become monks, basically, in our lives, hadn't really encountered any suffering. When each of us looked back on our own 20-year history, many classmates, some got married, some got divorced, some got married, then lost a son or a husband. There were all kinds of situations like that, so many of them. A lot of our female classmates recounted their life stories while crying. But for us monks, honestly, there wasn't much of that. Throughout the whole journey, there just wasn't any particularly intense suffering. And up to now, it's still the same. So I really feel that Buddhism, I'm not just saying this, has, for me personally, on the one hand, perhaps because at the very beginning I relied on my precious teacher and systematically listened, contemplated, and understood some of the benefits of Madhyamaka and Mahayana Buddhism. And on the other hand, I myself was also in such a pure environment. Later, even though my father passed away and my relatives passed away, these things in my life, I don't seem to feel that they are a source of suffering. That's how it is.
A member from the study group of Shantu has a question. To be reborn in the pure land of ultimate bliss, must one realize the wisdom of emptiness? If reborn with karmic residue, does one also need to realize the wisdom of emptiness?
It can be said that it's not necessary to realize emptiness first in order to be reborn there. First, by relying on the power of Amitabha Buddha's vows, after being reborn with karmic residue, one can realize emptiness in the pure land, then attain the bodhisattva stage and help sentient beings.
A friend from Hong Kong asks, many people are addicted to horse betting. They are in a lot of pain, but they can't control themselves and stop gambling. How can we help them?
What does it mean to be addicted to horse betting?
It's about horse racing, and then they bet money on which horse will win.
I don't really understand this. I don't seem to have any particular feeling about it. What exactly does it mean?
It's also, in essence, a type or form of gambling. So this question is...
I really can't answer it.
Another friend asks, Master, is the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch a Buddhist scripture?
The Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch is not a Buddhist scripture. It was written by the Sixth Patriarch.
Hello, Master. I have previously read a lot of Buddhist philosophy. I've also read many of your articles published online, and some articles published by other Rinpoches as well. Now, regarding Buddhist philosophy, I feel I have some understanding of the Four Seals. I've also been reading the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch. What I want to know now is, as I start working, how should I approach things? Although I can constantly remind myself of the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism to help myself avoid a certain kind of fear, but often at work, for example, when I'm criticized or feel under pressure, how can I keep my emotions from being overly affected by the environment? And also, I have a question about how to practice visualization. Regarding the so-called nirvana is serene and beyond concepts, this Dharma seal...
Well, I think in our daily lives, for example, when you are criticized by your boss or by others, at such times there is a method I just mentioned, which is to treat criticism as an echo in an empty valley. This is found in Mahayana Buddhism, and also in Rest in Illusion. It talks about this, the voices of others, especially as Atisha often said, when others insult me, I treat it as an echo in an empty valley. Or when others insult me, I take it as words of praise for me. If we can reach such a state, then whatever others say to me actually becomes praise for me. In front of Shakyamuni Buddha, some people praised him while others slandered him. He treated all words of slander just as if they were words of praise. This way, one will not be swayed by circumstances or suffer because of them. Therefore, I think that in our daily lives, especially for you all, if you can't study the entire Bodhikarevatara, at least study the chapter on patience. Many great masters abroad, often in many places, when teaching the Bodhikarevatara, focus only on the chapter on patience. This chapter on patience must be studied. If you study the chapter on patience, you can endure the sufferings in daily life. And when others treat you unfairly in various ways, you can also endure it. In this way, in our lives filled with the 5 desires and 6 sense objects, we can still live quite happily. Now, secondly, just now, among the so-called 4 seals, there is the teaching of the peace of nirvana. Actually, the peace of nirvana refers to emptiness. This method of meditation, in Tibetan Buddhism, there are also many such meditation methods. For example, visualizing yourself as any Buddha, and finally merging all samsara and nirvana into yourself. And ultimately, you also abide in a state-like space, practicing in the realm of emptiness. Actually, this is something we often practice at the causal stage, but this kind of practice at the very beginning starts with impermanence and suffering. In this way, you can gradually come to truly understand the real meaning of the Four Seals. Actually, practicing the Four Seals, I've seen that many Rinpoches abroad are also teaching the Four Seals. When you fully understand these Four Seals, you will already grasp the essential outline of Buddhism, therefore, in our daily lives. I hope that those present here won't get attached to just a single term or concept. Some Buddhists here often have this kind of, are you a Buddhist? Yes, a Buddhist. But basically, they don't really practice or contemplate the principles of Buddhism that much. This is unreasonable. If we want to be Buddhists, there should be some substance to it. We shouldn't let ourselves become completely hollow or empty inside. Having a core value and meaning is very important. We must practice the Four Seals. Practice the basic preliminaries, such as taking refuge, generating bodhicitta, and the 5 preliminary practices. First, start practicing the simpler methods, and then move on to more advanced ones. Many people are not like that now. First, take the advanced methods, then move on to the simpler ones. That's unreasonable. It's unreasonable for us to pursue a doctorate first, and then start primary school.